Excellent. All right. Hello again. Starting now our session on the state of PR in MENA region. Today we will speak about different discussion points that we feel it's important to assess the current situation of our industry. We will also deep dive into some of issues, technologies that impacted the way that we practice the industry within our region. We will give some case studies based on the experiences of our esteemed guest speakers. And of course, we will keep the session live and open for discussions. There will be at the end Q&A session for any questions, but feel free whenever you have a question to share it through the Q&A so you don't forget it. And we will make sure that we will answer all your questions at the end. Today we will start with discussing the current situation from the perspective and lens from our both guest speakers. Each one of them have different backgrounds and maybe practicing and surfacing their clients from different markets. Mohammed, for example, is joining us from Saudi Arabia, from Riyadh, and Dana is joining us from Morocco. Between Asia and Africa, too many similarities and at the same time two different differentiations between them. We will speak also about the global events which happened in the past few months, and also some of them are coming in the future, including COP27 in Egypt, COP28 in UAE next year, the World Cup in Qatar happening now, and before that we have Expo Dubai. All of these events impacted us as communicators, and there should be utilization of these events to invest the interest of the region and from the media or from general public to reflect the hype of this region. We will speak also about the talents. We believe that too many things have been changed to nurture the talents within our region, especially for the young generations. Not only from the academic side, since we have some participants joining us from universities today, but also from training and capacity building perspective. We will speak also about the language, considering that the Arabic language is one of the main languages within the Middle East and North Africa region, and the two largest maybe countries within the region, which is Egypt and Saudi Arabia, the Arabic language sometimes considered the first language when it comes to the business environment, especially with the government communication perspective. So is it a barrier or is it an advantage? We need to discuss this further, and how could the industry respond to this to make sure that it could be more inclusive for these practitioners. Lastly, we would maybe address some of the efforts that's been done by CIPR International in this regard to make sure that even the qualifications and accreditations also recognize the Arab-speaking practitioners. Let's start today to welcome our guests. I'm starting with my colleague Dana Adnani. She's the CEO and founder of the DaBuzz Communication Consultancy. She's from Jordan, but based in Morocco, where she's bringing with her a rich experience, more than 20 years experience working in corporate affairs with a focus on communications and building partnerships. Before she starts her own agency, she led the communications for Uber, Microsoft, Nokia, Dow, Coca-Cola for the Middle East region. And currently she's leading her agency. She said that's supposed to be a post-retirement plan, but apparently she's working now double the working hours before her corporate life. Also, we have in the panel my colleague Mohammed Al-Ayed, who's the CEO of TRACCS. It's a headquartered agency in Saudi Arabia, but covering the whole MENA region. Mohammed has been engaged in the public relations practice for more than 3 decades, although he looks younger, but that's a reality. He's one of the leading and pioneer, agency founders. TRACCS was founded back to 1998. Next year, they are celebrating their 25th anniversary. And since then, they have more than 200 practitioners working in 14 offices across 13 markets. Mohammed now working closely with the Saudi government and other governments within the region, where his team leading the communication operations for the Vision 2030 and other promising mega projects happening within the region. So welcome Dana, welcome Mohammed to this session, and I look forward for very insightful discussion today with our participation. To start with, I just had an open-ended question for both of you in 2 minutes, to tell me how do you see the current situation of the PR within the region. You have seen it from both lenses, from the client and the agency side. If Dana, would you like to start, please?
First of all, I would like to start by thanking you, Saad, and the whole community of CIPR for inviting me to this session. And also would like to thank Mohammed Al-Ayed and welcome him to the session. A very good old friends. We go many years ago during the Coca-Cola time. Al-Ayed was our proud agency in Saudi. So very happy to connect with old friends and new friends as well. This is a very interesting question to start our session with, simply because you know, the current state of PR is quite controversial. I mean, post-COVID, we have seen a huge, I would like to call it as a digital revolution, where the PR has really made a frog leap or a huge shift in the way we do things. And this is created a big question for us. You know, is traditional PR dying? Is it old-fashioned? Do we really need to focus only on digital? And if not, what do we need to fill in the gap, etc.? You know, there've been many studies and statistics about this, and we know that the global PR relation market is huge. You know, in the US, just last year, almost reached 100 billion. They expect it to end this year at 130 billion, and by 2026, maybe to increase to 150. It's huge. And we know in MENA or in MEA, we have a big part of it. Industry of the PR in the Middle East region or MENA region is also is expected to reach a value of current the size of what it is today, and hopefully to 1 billion by the end of 2030. So we have seen a huge shift in the PR scene, and we have seen, as I mentioned earlier, the shift to digital PR, digital communication. We see the huge interest in artificial intelligence. I mean, for some of you who are based in UAE, I mean, I read some articles saying that it could reach to an estimated 182 artificial intelligence participant, and to bring or to drive to the economy by 182 million or billion, sorry, to add to the economy. I'm sorry. So I don't want to take much of your time, but you tell me, Saad, when do we need to stop and shift and get Mohammed's perspective on this? But I would like just to leave you with some figures, as we discussed and we agreed to bring some good, helpful insight in this session. It's estimated that social media, as of January 2022, the number of social media reached almost to 4.5 billion, people or users on the sphere, and an average of 2.5 hours per person, individual, time spent on social media, which could be good news or bad news. Bad news for moms like me and kids on the tablets and phone all the time. And almost, let's say that 50% of this global social media users identify as male. So we have almost a little bit less than 50% who are female. So some figures and numbers just to give you a perspective and give the audience a perspective. What is changing, what's happening in the PR industry, particularly in the Middle East and Africa. And we will talk a little bit later on about what's the impact and how is this affecting the way we do business and communication and PR, and how this is impacting our audiences and our users, and how we pitch and how we communicate this to our clients, and hence, the shift in clients' expectations as well.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Thank you for the facts and figures. Very insightful, Adnani. Mohammed, what's your view on the current situation of the PR?
Thank you, Saad. Thank you, Dana, and thank you, CIPR, for this very important session. I want to begin by congratulating our colleagues and brothers from Morocco on their advancement. So Dana, I know she's in Morocco, so this is a great, it created a lot of inspiration and a lot of nice movement on this win. So let me tell you I have 3 central ideas I'd like to share today. The first central idea is unprecedented times. And why we're living in unprecedented times? Because we have now, I believe the Arab world and the MENA region has enough knowledge and bandwidth to tell stories, which was not the case before. Number 2, we have a very healthy mix of talent and experience to create the right communications dynamic. And I think part of the session today, Saad, we're talking about big events that have been shaping the region, but have been also opportunities to self-story. And I think demand hasn't been greater for information from our region. So in short, I would like to say that communications today, not only in the Arab world and the MENA region, is a game-changing industry. And the debate whether communications will flourish, die, stagnate is done. And I just want to give a small kind of a reality check. Who says marketing today? People say communications. I mean, marketing is there, it's an important function, we all know it and see it, but I think it's part of a bigger mix, which is comms. So communications is there to stay, and I think this is very important. So that's my first idea. My second idea, and just to add to what Dana was saying, the budgets are there. I mean, there's growth, and I think one of the last insights that came out said that the MENA region is $1 billion, and it's expected to become $2 billion by 2030. Just a decade ago, it was 500 million. So the budgets and the expenditure on communication from 10 years ago to today has doubled, right? And I think the third point, which is very important, more than budgets and more than, I think spending, look at the power that we have in the region, the power of the youth. And I'll just give you some statistics. The youth generation constitutes 32% of youth in the region of 22 countries. 1/4 is under the age of 25 years old. Millennials are 108 million, which is about 60% of the population or so. I'll give you an example. 37% of the population of Saudi Arabia are under the age of 14. And let me tell you how that's going to impact on communications. Just a bit of my own projections. More than 100 companies will open in the next 3 years in comms, whether specialized or big ones. So somebody will open content, somebody will open digital, at least 100. Now I'm saying 100, this is a very, very small baseline. Why? Because the demand is very high. More than 10 training facilities will open, specializing in communications. Why? Because there is a very important need to create feeder streams for the market. And finally, look at all the consultancy firms, the big ones. They're all now venturing into comms. You start getting RFPs, you got certain demand from consulting firms doing comms. Why? Because communications is a viable industry. And I think I'll give the floor to Saad, but my main word of today is viability, and we could talk about later on because that stands for a very important segment of our business. So very, very healthy mix. There's a big outlook. And I think the whole idea is that we are living in unprecedented times, and unprecedented times creates for us unprecedented challenges, creating a unique set of unprecedented opportunities. And all of this together brings us an unprecedented outlook towards life, towards business, towards society, and towards communications.
Yeah, thank you, Mohammed. We will deep dive in your insights very soon. Just to start, maybe Dana, I've seen that you have rich experience working with multinational companies before, including Microsoft, Uber, Dow, and Coca-Cola. And to think about it, you have covered the Middle East and North Africa region. Would it be challenging and complicated to see the Arab world as one region, thinking of that we are here, 400 million population, very diverse, 22 countries, 3 languages, including Arabic, English, and French, not talking about the maybe national dialects, which maybe affect the communication between the nations. That diverse landscape, would it be something challenging for the multinational companies to target the region through their campaigns, through addressing the issues, and to maybe draw, let's say, a perception about this part of the world?
Well, I mean, thank you, Saad. Well, diversity is always good. And I think now, as Mohammed was saying, companies understand these markets. As progressive countries like the one in GCC or others like Levant in Egypt, Iraq, Iran, and all that, we have become gradually like the rest of the developed world. I mean, before, even when we have few traditional ones, as I mentioned, like Egypt or Iran, so I think companies and international brand understand the market very, very well, and they understand that wealth is here and that we have developed dramatically in the last couple of decades. The challenge for me is not whether they understand this diversity or not. The challenge is how willing they are to adapt and to really reach out to experienced people like me and Mohammed and the rest of the agencies in the world to help them really connect with their targeted audiences and targeted consumers. I have companies, even a Russian company recently, who reached out to me and they had this kind of a challenge. It's our role as experienced practitioners in the industry is to come back and advise these clients or these brands on the best approach, not because they don't understand, but there are very many other variables that they need to look at. If you mention one of them, which is the language, and it's not just the language, the dialect, what is the right approach? The other thing is sensibility of the content. A lot of companies, they come and they want to advertise about a certain brand or a certain product where it's cultural sensitive or cultural or time sensitive, when the country or the culture or the population or the audience is going through a tough time, we need to have a little bit of understanding. So these are the quite challenges. It's not understanding the diversity or the culture of a country. It's just having the local knowledge and the local advice to help them with their storytelling and the best way to tell the story and the best time to tell the story. That's how practitioners like us and agencies, and I agree with Mohammed, they will always need PR, whether it's digital, whether it's traditional, whether it's direct marketing, they will need the local people or specialists to help them and advise them. When I talked earlier about the shift in the digital, I think this is a global movement, and we see it in the Arab world happening in a more dramatic way. I mean, adaptation to digital evolution did not happen maybe gradually as the more advanced market. And this could be a great advantage or a spell. And that's what I call it. It's a sort of two edges. And I think our role as PR specialists and experienced people is to really help the whole community and the whole ecosystem to fill in this gap and do this frog leap in the most appropriate way, you know. And this is the topic that I would like even to have a deeper dive in. I don't want to go more in details, but this is what really I think is the most challenging, but yet the most powerful tool that PR and marketing people or specialists or practitioners need to really focus on for the next decade or so.
Thank you. Mohammed, do you think that if we have an international voice or a media outlet that speaks the languages of key markets would also gives a better understanding? For example, I think Al Jazeera tried to have Al Jazeera English, and maybe other TV channels or mediums have tried to have speak the language of other nations and other markets, so it would make it easier for the multinational companies to understand what are the concerns, what are the preferences, and could communicate easily with the region. I'll give you maybe a comparative example. BBC, for example, works in different languages, including Arabic, CNN as well. So would it be useful for the Arab world to have something similar to these platforms to speak to the world in their own language, so we make the mutual understanding getting better and better?
First of all, Saad, I completely agree with you. And I think there's a very important statement that we want to talk about to say the success and the failure, it's only hinges not only on the ability to communicate, but the capability to engage and connect. And I think we've seen the models you mentioned, whether BBC, etc. They have created sub-brands that speak to people in their own language. And I think we're seeing this more in the Arab world or in the MENA region. We're seeing it a lot in the Gulf, the GCC. All the GCC countries have transformation programs, right? They all have vision programs. And what they've done is that their media outlets had to adapt and do that. For example, I'll give you an example. SPA, which is a Saudi press agency, they publish and they speak in about 9 languages. Or media outlets like Arab News has now started, printing they started actually broadcasting from Japan. Now, I think this is number one. The number two, which is also very important, is that we need to look at, and to add to what Dana was saying, I believe in combos, and I'll tell you why. You can't go to always and serve a la carte meal. Sometimes you have to create a combo. Sometimes you have to have a buffet, and sometimes you have to have a la carte. And I think to look at that market, like the MENA region, which is over 200 million people, 3 languages, 22 countries, it's not even that. What about the dialects? You can go into some of the markets, they have different dialects that you are in the same country. It's like China, it's a huge, huge market, or India. They have maybe over 200 dialects. So I think sometimes it's not about being able to crack a market. It's about seeing how this market behaves. Even within a certain market, the young generation behaves differently. So I will say you have to be able to understand the combo. You have to understand by creating some meals that people can actually take on and understand and do that. So I think and the last point I want to say is that the region has been undergoing a lot of reforms, and reforms are driven by transformation. And transformation is a very important business tool that requires communication. If you want to transform, you have to communicate. And that is why the region now has been seeing the impact and value of transformation and communication to transformation. So in terms of answering your point, of course, 100%. If you are not able to connect with people and engage with them, then you have lost your turn to tell your story. And I think this is very important.
That's great. Speaking of telling your own story, Dana, I know that you are working with BN Sport, which is the official broadcaster of the World Cup within the MENA region. That could be maybe the right time for such it's a prime time for a TV channel to speak to everyone. How do you see such opportunities like the World Cup or the major events that's happening within the region, which we mentioned earlier, like Expo Dubai or a COP or the World Cup? would be an opportunity for communication. How could the communicators utilize these opportunities? If you could share any, if your experience with PR sport, if there is nothing that maybe could be confidential, we would be happy to hear such stories.
No, I mean, by the way, I'm just helping. I'm just helping with some World Cup news here in local North African markets. So whether it's the World Cup or launching Neom City in Saudi, or Morocco hosting the next Africa GITEX or whatever. This is part of countries or cities branding. And we see now more and more governments are gearing towards using this to promote the country, whether it's to help the economy or part of their political program, economical program, globalization. And we've seen the role of PR. That's our topic today here. How can PR help you, create a brand for the country or for a population? I mean, the World Cup is the best case study that we can look at. Everybody challenged Qatar, and they were very skeptical about how they will run the World Cup. I know people who boycotted the World Cup, and they were, my husband at the beginning, he was really hesitant to go and attend, and he didn't book. And now when they saw how well it's organized, how well the Qataris and the whole ecosystem really are doing a great job. They helped rebrand Qatar. They helped rebrand Arabic and Islam and the culture from a whole new perspective. And we've seen communication play. Not just the impressive setup and logistics, but also the media campaign they did, the influencers they brought from around the world. They reach out to all the content creators. They start telling their story from the other people's perspective. They created stunts. I saw the video yesterday about the guy, the metro guy, metro this way, that became like a more of a universal trend in TikTok, and then Metro of Qatar picked him as a brand ambassador. It's brilliant. So this is a good case study that's going to be taught in schools and in some PR conferences for the next decade, how countries are using and leveraging these kind of like big initiatives, big PR announcement, big PR events to promote their identity, their political, their regional, their socio-economical plans. And it's such a pleasure for me as a PR practitioner to see, how telling a story from the right angle, using the right channels, using digital, traditional, all of it. I think Qatar World Cup, they tapped all these, or they ticked all these boxes. So yes, I'm happy to see this. There's a couple of big conferences or events happening in Saudi. There's a music festival, there's art, there's a tourism. The World Travel Organization is doing a huge event there. And this is what we need. We used to have some of these. I lived in Morocco for now 17 years, and we have huge events. CUP also, I don't remember which year, happened here. But I think now governments, our public sector are also realizing the need for that. And that's why me and Mohammed are taking some of the government clients these days, because they realize they need to do it, and they just cannot do it in-house. They need experts, to help and advise. I really hope that the next big events in the big countries, really follow the same, let's say, strategy, same thinking, and starting using all the forces of marketing and communication to help create awareness around the world, not just in our region.
Thank you, Dana. You have mentioned very important things, that the shifting also have been noticed within the public sector, where the governments have been thinking about the wider, I would say, impact circle, not only for the domestic and the national issues, but also for the international reputations. Mohammed, I guess you are working closely with the Saudi government in terms of the Vision 2030. And if you could tell us from your previous engagement with different government agencies, how the mind shift is happening within the private sector in terms of communicating to international committees.
Thank you so much. This is a great question, Saad. And I think one of the biggest cases to be actually recounted and told is the speed. The government started communicating literally in a very, very proactive way once Vision 2030 was launched. Okay, and Vision 2030, I think, is in its 7th year. And what happened was suddenly the whole narrative has been now led by the government, whereby you have government ministries transforming and reforming, you have giga projects coming out, and then you have a very active public investment fund that has been obviously managing the whole trajectory of the kingdom's investment and expansion. What did this mean? It meant that we had to communicate on a global scale. We had to be able to shape our stories and messaging and narrative that can appeal to global audiences. It had to mean that the minister, before they actually calibrate or before they launch, they have to look at the message. And I'll give you an example. We work with 7 ministries. And in fact, we actually have at least twice a month, we have audience with the minister look at his messaging. This has never happened before. So if you look at this paradigm shift whereby, and this doesn't only happen in Saudi Arabia, which is where we're headquartered, but it happens in Bahrain, it happens also in Kuwait, it happens across multiple markets. So the undertaking I'm going to tell, maybe this is something very important for the audience today, is that we have devised a strategy called ACT. Personally, we believe the whole communications business in the region, which is similarly what's happening globally, is based on 3 things: advisory, content, and training. Everything else you want to talk about in terms of whether you want to talk about internal communications, you want to talk about digital, you want to talk about social responsibility, you want to talk about crisis, it is not the act of the crisis, it is the advisory side. Why? Because you are dealing with very, very senior people in the corporate echelon that they don't want doers, they want advisors. They have a lot of doers. I'll give you a small example. There's companies that have 60 and 70 people, all the telecom companies, they have 40, 50, 60 people in their communications team. So why would they hire an advisor? It's the same way if you want to hire a lawyer, if you want to hire a very big lawyer firm, because you have lawyers, but you want somebody to give you insight. Secondly, you have a lot of people that have been in these organizations for such a long time that they're able to do the work. But who's going to tell them that this is the direction? And I'll tell you something else. One of the biggest challenges is that sometimes if you don't get the right advisory and the right consultation, it is detrimental to the image of the organization. So this is the first takeaway. Number 2, advisors and trusted advisors don't grow on trees. It takes you at least, I truly believe, for somebody to become a trusted advisor, even if they're sharp, it takes 15 years, not less. You can be a good one. You can be a great director. You can be a great practitioner. You can be a great troubleshooter. To become an advisor, it takes time. So this is where the direction of the industry is going. So that's the advisor side. Content. It's very important to have proper content creators and people that can write content in Arabic, English, and French for the Arab world. You cannot operate in Morocco and in Lebanon without having somebody speaking and doing it in French. The Arabic dialect. Who said that you have to write classical Arabic when you're doing something internal? You have to speak with the local dialect. So I think it was mentioned something in one of the points that it might be a challenge. I think it's a prerequisite. The Arabic language, it's a prerequisite. And yes, you want to have mastery in English, but you need to be able to understand the Arabic language so you can connect with people. The third part, which is super important, in our business now, a good 15% is training. Never happened before. How do you take this minister and tell him, so you have the right advisory and you have the right content, how is he going to deliver it? You'll outsource it to somebody else to do it, then you lose the impact. You lose the impact of the act. So we have been building over the past 5 years a system and a methodology to give that whole package to the person, whether a minister or CEO, et cetera, with the benchmarking, with the metrics, with the evaluations, to say, here you are, Mr. Minister, or here you are, Mr. CEO, you have the right content, you are using the right approach, but this is your delivery, which means we have closed the whole circle, because if we don't do it, the advisory firms and the big consulting firms will come and do it, and they might don't do it the same way. So just to wrap up on this point is to all our colleagues attending from the region and outside, it is time to act. Advisory, content, and training. This will shape the whole communications industry for the next 10 years.
Thank you, Mohammed. Dana, if we want to build on this point, Mohammed, that summarized that the communication industry are built on three pillars: the advisory, content, and training. And I can see that the three of them, depending, of course, on the caliber of the human and the professionals behind them. Let's talk about the talents. I'm sure you have seen changes over time since you started your career. And maybe the disruption of the technology as well maybe have affected the professionalism and the caliber of talent. How do you see the people which you are hiring or interacting with as clients, or even as media reporters or other stakeholders? Tell us about the talents. How do you see it and the change over time from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, going back to what we've discussed earlier about diversity, about the new evolution in digital PR and the shift actually in corporate or government, way of doing PR, or maybe increasing need within this globalization movement. We also notice there's some kind of gaps in the talent. As we see these evolutions, we need to see a shift in these skills and set of competencies that we need in the industry. I left the age, maybe I am a little bit older than both of you, but I left the age where we used to do PR by sending faxes or, sending a press release to a media in a certain time before the montage or before the article goes to the publisher for print. And if you miss it, and if it's a time sensitive, it's gone. Or if it's time sensitive, it's old news. Or doing a press conference and inviting people to come physically, etc. So even when we look at the talent, it does need to really match all these new changes and new needs and the kind of the storytelling industry that we are following. And I'm not going to go into the great model that Mohammed has chosen, because to become an advisory, you have to have the knowledge and the experience, and it comes with years. But I'm talking about the mass kind of talent for the middle management, or for building a team and an agency. So we need to think about education. My time, I could not study communication as an undergrad because Jordan did not offer this as a major. It did not teach PR. You study journalism. Or, when I went to do the States, I had to do a special master's of art with focus on communication. Now, this is a topic in all universities. So it's easier if you decide to go into this industry to find the way to find the right, skills and knowledge kind of program. We need also to look at people who are already in the business and they need to improve or upgrade their skills when it comes to content creation, artificial intelligence, using tools, Google search, brand management, etc. And I think also as agencies, because me and Mohammed, we own our agency, we need to discuss a little bit about creating the right environment, creating the nice kind of ecosystem for people to join, not only to attract, but develop and maintain and improve and even export to clients. I have mentored, I see some members of Women in Africa attending this session. And throughout this organization, I have mentored many of women who did internship or training with me, who are, for the last 15 years. And I'm proud to say that 85% of them are managing communication departments in big companies like Nestle, BASF, OCP, Coca-Cola, Facebook, one is with Instagram. So these guys, we help them. And I am taking here on board in my agency some fresh graduate from American universities, and I'm taking interns who are learning, so we can export them whether to client or other bigger agencies or different agencies. So all fits in the skills development kind of like needs, immediate need, and urgent requirement for this industry to grow. Not only companies and clients need to upgrade the game, but we also need to match this growth in terms of talent. We need to create, talent retention programs. We want to create environment where they are happy to work with, they are appreciated, and they keep on learning. Put them in the clients, etc. Environment. And I don't see many agencies or many people trying to do that. And unfortunately, the turnover is quite huge within the industry. But I think if we look at the new generation of the metaverse, they come and they're ready to jump on the social media, on the digital evolution. As Mohammed said, we have a huge young generation, young youth in our part of the world, in Middle East and Africa. And this is fortunately becoming more of a choice for them when they saw how everybody, me, you, our brothers, sisters, people in the street are creating content, and they're becoming content creator, bloggers, influencers. All of a sudden, they're interested in this industry. And I see a huge potential in terms of growth and growing talents and growing skills and upgrading them to meet the growing demands that Mohammed and you, Saad, talked about earlier.
Thank you, Donna, for the overview. I've got interested of building encouraging ecosystem. It's not just a training or a recruitment. It's a whole package. That's the right word. Mohammed, I know that you have a training arm called Enrich within TRACCS, and through that you are building the capacity of the new talents and other maybe professionals. If you could also tap into that and tell us your perspective about the talents within the region and how TRACCS is helping them to grow.
Thank you. And first, I wanted to brief. I mean, a lot what Dana said, I wholeheartedly agree with what she said. I think, look, talent in the communications business is a big challenge. And, we have been, almost every year participating, working with Provoke on different things. And the talent issues are global. It's not just in the Middle East or the Arab world or MENA, etc. It's even the US, in the UK, etc. And I think because of the shift from being a practitioner to an advisor, you can't get enough people. So imagine you have to have, the demand says, I want to have 500 heart surgeons, right? Not practitioners, right? And the market can only graduate 50 heart surgeons. You have a deficit of 350 heart surgeons. So you have 50 heart surgeons who are very busy. Our set of challenges has been completely different. Why? Because we operate across the MENA region. We have 24 nationalities, 200 people, and of which 25% of our workforce is under the age of 25. So our mindset and our issues is that we are the Arab world. I just shared statistics of how many people there are under the age of 25. It's about a quarter. We have a quarter as well. What we have found out, especially from the young talent that we want to keep at least and train, etc. 3 key takeaways. Culture over enterprise. These young people care about culture. You give them the right culture, then you put some rules, they'll apply. But if you put rules without culture, they won't stay. 2, human connection supported by technology. So if you give them just systems, they don't care. They want to have this human connection. And thirdly, which is absolutely something that we have to work very hard on, is recognition. We have people in the company that have been with us for 16, 17 years, etc. Fine, they know this, they don't need a pat on the back, but these young people do. So for us to manage this whole talent dilemma that I call is a tailored approach by an individual, not by a group. You can't come and say, well, I have 8 people in Bahrain who are under the age of 25. I'm going to create a program from them. You have to take it individually. So the whole individual side of things. And I think the other thing as well that is very important, you keep people in check. You have to always create the challenge. And I think these special sets of challenges that are facing the communications industry in MENA is not different from the world. We can't, I mean, as much as we have our part of it is very particular because of the whole genesis of communications, etc. But we're not alien to this world. We are part of this global arena. So whoever the person in the UK or Ivory Coast or Lebanon or Jordan or the US, in terms of the communication challenge, we're all facing it the same way. I think there is no solution or there's no formula to say I'm done. It's about reworking it and innovating. You have to keep innovating. You have to keep working it. And I think the biggest challenge for communications team members and companies and agencies and departments over the next 5 years is retention of talent and making them grow and making them relevant. So this is maybe a quick summary of where I see the talent issue going.
Thank you, Mohammed. I think it would be a good time also to open the discussion, open the floor for any questions from the participants. Sure. We can get the questions through the Q&A section. Meanwhile, I also want to highlight that the CIPR is launching a new programs, qualifications, and accreditations in Arabic, and that's a step just to be more internationally inclusive, to reach more people, to make sure the language would not be a barrier for those practitioners who's interested to get qualified and strengthen their and sharpen their skills and knowledge in the language. I'm not sure if my colleague also Bernie from CIPR HQ would speak about and add anything about that through the Q&A. That would be great. All right, let's see what questions from the beginning. All right. Some people are saying that the chat was disabled, so it's now, should be working now. Please confirm. All right, then. Yeah, that's great. We have too many practitioners, international practitioners who used to work in the region. Crispin, for 10 years. Wow. Morocco, Hafsat, also. All right, the first question we have here, what drove the doubling of the budget in the region? That's based maybe on the facts and figures that Dana mentioned at the beginning. Was it because of the government communications, COVID and healthcare, multinational interests in the MENA region, the tech companies and the startups? Can you see the question, Dana, or shall I?
Yeah, I saw it. I didn't know whether it's for me and Mohammed. I think we both talked about that the need is still there and budget is still there. You know, I think many factors have been, related to that. But indeed, it's both. It's government and private sector. You know, post-COVID, or before COVID, they had a steady budgets and they had to freeze it for some time. We saw an explosion beginning of 2022. You know, I have some figures and maybe Mohammed can confirm these, but, you know, when we talked about digital media and the shift in the evolution, if you look at MENA alone, Saudi was reported to spend, Saudi is the biggest Arab, world economy. They spend at least 37 billion on the information communication technology last year. UAE is the same, almost 23 billion, and they boosted and highlighted their digital presence or footprints. I mean, we saw people like Sheikh Mohammed, Sheikh Mo, if you guys don't know him, the governor and the Prince of Dubai, is using all social media for government announcement. Public sectors are even advertising for jobs on digital media, etc. And there's a huge campaign, CSR campaign, corporate campaign, as I mentioned earlier, country and city branding campaigns, etc. Also, I think COVID and post-COVID, company realized, many companies who did not used to spend money, they realized not only we need to create awareness about brand or whatever, but we have a reputation to protect, and we have to show that our corporate approach is not, I mean, sorry, our corporate social engagement is not behind. So we see a lot of companies doing a lot of CSR projects and advertising them. Last year alone for myself, I had a couple of clients, P&G, OCP, you know, the main ask was for CSR, and we have not seen this before. Traditionally, people used to do that and spend money there when they are hit by a crisis or an issue to fix. But now they realize with global digital revolution, they need to protect their brands and they need to start acting now in a more of proactive rather than a reactive approach. We've seen many companies, actually, what Mohammed mentioned earlier is very interesting. You have company, I was in Microsoft, there's 250 people in the PR. In Uber, we were, I don't know, 50. You know, when I was recently in a startup in Jumia, or many companies I work with, they have one person in the communication department because they believe they need the advisory board from external agency, like us, what Mohammed was saying. You become too involved in a company, you don't have the perspective, and then they don't have the tools for measuring impact, for doing benchmarks and all that. So I think this is where we see the growth in the industry. We see also new jobs and new needs created, content creation, intelligence, technical tools to measure impact, to measure reputation, even with the languages. You know, there are copywriters now where tools where you can put in a word and you look for it and it gives you all the alternative and, you know, in terms of tonality, you know. So the industry is evolving and the potential for growth is even bigger. US, even political parties, I see embassies, embassy in Morocco, embassy in Jordan, US embassy. They're doing digital campaigns for the first time. The ambassador came a day before the match of Morocco and Spain, and he did a whole, you know, digital video about him supporting Morocco and speaking in a small dialect using the word sir, 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 where everybody's doing it. So this is where it's going to happen, and this is where the growth is going to happen. And I agree with Mohammed, not 100 company will open. Every day in Morocco, we're a small market. There's like 1,000 agency coming every, you know, couple of years. Yes, some very small, but I have not seen the big ones. But you know, Mohammed, and I have some people from Africa, when I used to reach out for big companies or big, and I would say, we are in Africa, come and let us help you. They would say, oh, Africa is not our, you know, PR specialist, media, they're a little bit, you know, traditional. Guess what? It's changing, and the change is happening very fast, and they will have to fill in the gap very quickly.
Yeah. Thank you, Dana. We'll just go through the other questions very...
Sorry, it's too long. You can stop me time.
Second question would be for Mohammed. It's he's agreeing or she's agreeing with you regarding the language, that Arabic is a prerequisite for the PR practitioners within the region. But what would be the case if an experienced international practitioner would learn the Arabic language and would like to find the right fit for them within the region? Would the nationalization programs would limit the options for attracting international talents or no?
Look, I mean, I think of course not. I mean, at the end of the day, what you want to do is you want to create a fair, healthy ecosystem. What you cannot do is have a company that has one nationality. I mean, it just then you're not going to get this whole global experience. And I think I'll tell you something, especially in the GCC, the whole thing is about knowledge transfer and building local content. And knowledge transfer and building local content are very important prerequisites in what we do today. So somebody that doesn't speak the language not necessarily is not relevant as a communicator in that market. In fact, language is one part of the whole expression. There's culture, there's a perspective, there's a lot of different things. So we actually encourage, I mean, you know, we have about 62 people in Saudi, and we have 7 or 8 nationalities just in Saudi, and we we have different nationalities. We have people from Asia, we have people from Africa, we have people from Europe. And I think this creates a whole important cultural barrier. And I'll tell you another thing. A person who is very skilled in one language, but does not have the ability to research and look at what's happening in the global arena, is only 50% of the practitioner he can be. And the way you can do this is that you have to embrace another language. You have to be able to go research and look at what's happening in the US, in UK, in Germany, in France, etc. So I always believe in the very, very importance of having a very mixed, healthy mix of people who are from different nationalities. So in fact, you know what, I'll give you a small story of a person we used to have working with us. Now he's a VP in a very big organization. He's half Saudi, half German. He came to Saudi Arabia, doesn't speak a word of Arabic, zero. And he worked in the English section in one magazine, etc., etc. Joined us. I think in the 3 years that he learned Arabic in TRACCS, and he's Saudi passport. And what has happened, he was able to create. Now, maybe he's not a person that can write perfect Arabic because he was educated in German and English. But what he's been able to create is a global perspective with a very rich understanding of the market and of the values and being Saudi. And this person, it has advanced his career. So every year that he did was equivalent to 5 years. Within 4 years, became VP in a public listed company. Why? Because he brought the global expertise and he was really worked hard to understand the local flavor, etc., etc. And he's there. So to answer the question to the person who asked it, I think it's great. And actually invite people from different markets to come in to experience PR in our region. There's a lot of things happening and there's a lot of room for growth.
Yeah, thank you, Mohammed. There is a follow-up question, but I would just take the permission of you, my panelists and the participant, to take 5 more minutes extra of our time, just to make sure that we are covering all the questions. But I think we will move faster, just to make sure. Mohammed, the follow-up question was about do you see more Saudi practitioners within your market, or more Emirati practitioners in the UAE and so on in other markets?
To be honest with you, Saad, in 2022, and as you mentioned before, we are going to be 25 years old in 3 weeks. So this is a very exciting time for TRACCS. I'm seeing the industry post 2023 with a lot of clarity. I truly believe that eventually the MENA region is going to export communications talent globally. We can. Why? Because we bring a very, very important perspective. The Middle East and the MENA region is very much now a hot seat center for the global arena, whether it's in business, sports, politics, social reforms, etc. For people to be able to understand our region, they have to interact and engage with people who understand the dynamic of the market and the fabric. That is why advisors in communications from the MENA region are going to be hot commodities, and they're going to be sought after. So we are going to be able to export communications talent across the region and outside. I think this is going to happen in the next 5 years.
Yeah, inshallah. Thank you. Dana, whenever we speak about the talents, I think there is always a correlation that the talents means young professionals. So what about the experienced professionals? Are they getting eliminated, or just maybe the focus of the programs and the appreciation for the young generation and young professionals? So what is your observation of the relationship between attracting talents or even retaining talents of the experienced talents, not the young ones?
Yeah, I think they're two separate challenges, but for any company, whether it's a client or an agency like us, we have to have room for everybody. You know, I talked earlier about having a training program. I have a training program. I don't have a name brand for it, Mohammed, like you provoke, but I should have. But I take these trainees, if they have the potential and they're happy to learn and they show some growth opportunities, we hire them. That's number one. Let's not forget the development plan. You know, we are like big companies. The industry needs some kind of development, you know, this kind of training, webinars, sessions, soft skills, hard skills, technology, cabling, enabling, all that. It's very important for the young generation. Now for people mid-range, mid-management and higher management, it's the offering. The challenge that you can provide, the set of clients you can attract, giving them credit, giving them the right environment. We know that people stay only if they feel sense of belonging, they feel a purpose, they feel achievement, recognized, as Mohammed talked about recognition. Happiness is very important. Now everybody's in the well-being kind of mindset, so they need to feel happy and having a healthy environment around them, and the presence of energy, enthusiasm, excitement of work. I can tell you, even though Saad talked about the post-retirement, and I thought I'm going to take it easy, select my clients and work, as I decide, the excitement every morning when you wake up and you have something, a new challenge, a new client to pitch, or a new project for a client to succeed. I think that's what's keeping the people in the job and what's encouraging them. There is a need, the whole market in the region, there needs. And Saudi is hiring non-Saudis, Emiratis is hiring non-Emirati. In Morocco, we're hiring non-Moroccans. I had an Indian fellow from Dubai applying to come and join me in Morocco, just simply because he likes Morocco. Two of my internal employees, one moved to Turkey, another one moved to South Korea because they wanted to explore opportunities. This metaverse generation is very mobile. They're crossing cultural boundaries, they're crossing geographical boundaries, and we're happy to export this. So talent, there is a challenge, but there's opportunity. What we need to attract more talent and find the right kind of set of skills that they would like to achieve to be equipped to do this kind of a job. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, Dania. I think we have just on time, get on time, and we have just other few questions. I apologize that we couldn't answer all of them, but in 30 seconds, Mohammed, if you would like to wrap up about your future outlook about the PR in our region.
So let me, look, I always like to leave people with things to take away, and I like to even leave statements of words. So I'm going to leave you with one statement that's very important, and it's called viable. And viability is very important in our industry because it always keeps us in check to make sure that we are relevant and we're significant. And I'm going to tell you the 6 words that create viability in our business. And this is the first step for us to recognize that viability is the whole idea to act and to do this whole idea of advisory content and training. So let me start with the first word, value. We have to always make sure that we are constantly delivering value. 2 is impact. All the transformation programs across the regions, Bahrain has one, Saudi has one, Kuwait has one, Oman has one, all the markets have one, and others that don't have a transformation program have a growth plan. They have to create impact. They have to say what this transformation program has to create: a certain number of jobs, certain increase in GDP, etc. Ambition, very important. And I think Qatar is a great example of this whole ambition that was done for how many years, and then the whole world now is talking about the great organization of the World Cup. Number 4, and this is a very, very important weapon for any communications practitioner, which is being bold. And bold you can create, you can change it with courage. You have to be bold. You can't be around the sidelines trying to make a statement when there's a lot of noise. Number 5, and I will say this to all my team members who have been with us for so many years. I'll say, you're a director, you've been there for us 15 years. We can't teach you any more skills, but what we can do is we can actually hone your leadership. So the 5th leg is leadership, and the last one. Once you have all of that, but if your work is not perfect and there's no excellence, then all of this, you can take it away, throw it down the drain, and water it, and then you have nothing. So let me go back and say it's value, impact, ambition, boldness, leadership, and excellence. That creates the viability of our industry. So this is the takeaway I'd like to leave everybody. And Saad, thank you so much. Dana, great connecting with you. I thank everybody that attended as well. Lots of people that I've recognized as well. So hopefully we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Inshallah. Thank you, Mohammed. Dana, any closing remarks from your end?
Yeah, I would like to focus on the PR and our industry as a challenge and what's happening. So I'll summarize. We talked about digital transformation of the media industry and what we need to do to be able to address that and really, fill in or compile and fill in with the gap. We talked about it's a crowded world of social media and PR and news and whatever, and we have to be ready to really contribute to this ecosystem and make sure that it's empty or it has less misinformation out there. That's our responsibility as practitioners. We talked about traditional newsroom shrinking and of course the new kind of content creator outside. Everybody is a publisher. You, me, people who are attending this, anybody who became a media and can share that kind of content, and we need to pay a close eye on that one. And also we need to be credible and we need to be focused on our measurability of our work, whether it's PR, whether it's social media, traditional or not traditional. And I would like to leave the audience with maybe a question, what do you think about the future? But regardless, for me, it's always hard to predict what will be the future, whether PR is here for the next 100 or century or whatever. But what's important in PR and in social media is to maintain the positive public image. And companies will know and people will know that it should be our main priority. We should all focus on keeping or remaining our positive image, not only in where we are and where we operate, but also globally. There were a couple of questions about Qatar. I'm sorry, I cannot address them. But when I address Qatar, just to make it clear, it was a good case study because of very good, successful PR. But there are things to be improved and things to be addressed, and there are ways that they could do better. But still, I think there's maybe another session on the World Cup. But so far from a practitioners, I think they've done a great effort, and and we will see the metrics in the report in the future. They contribute somehow to changing the bad perception about the Arab world, about Muslims, about culture or whatever, and they managed to really create diverse, regardless of the things that we look at differently or in a different relative way.
Thank you, Dana, the CEO of DaBuzz Consulting in Morocco. Thank you, Mohammed Al-Ayed, CEO of TRACCS in Saudi Arabia, for your insights, your time. And I'm extending the thanks for our participants who have joined us today. And apologies again for those who we couldn't answer their questions. And just a final reminder that for those of you who are interested in reaching out the CIPR HQ regarding the Arabic qualifications and accreditations, I've shared the email ID of my colleague Sujit, who would be the right person to contact about collaborations and updates on this regard. Thank you again for joining the PR State and MENA region session of CIPR International, and we look forward for future events together with you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Saad. Can I take a screenshot, please? Let me. If we have the three of us, we can take a screenshot. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Just 1 second. Maybe Samantha did, but just in case.
Samantha is here. Let me just promote
I
her.
thought she was for, but anyway.
She was in. I hope that.
I think she.
Samantha, I will promote you, so you'll be in the picture with us. Just 1 second.
Samantha did a very nice release on Africa blog. Mohammed, I'll show you I send you the link if Saad has not. Maybe she can't turn her camera on. Oh, here you are. Samantha.
Samantha is our
Hi, good to see you all.
Yeah.
So let's take a screenshot. 1, 2, 3. Why it's not happening? Oh, sorry, I know why. Done. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thanks for a great session, everyone. Thank you.